All right, welcome back to the channel. This one is a doozy. Man, it looks like Canelo Alvarez might have accused Oscar De La Hoya and DAZN of, or he did accuse him, of fraud, and believes that Oscar De La Hoya might have negotiated $60 million out of Canelo Alvarez's pockets. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So we know for a while that Canelo Alvarez was suing DAZN and Oscar De La Hoya for breach of contract. But we found out today that that is just the tip of the iceberg and that the meat of it really exists in some other things that he is accusing Oscar De La Hoya and Canelo of. Now, I'm going to refer you to an article that is written on the issue today on Boxing Scene. And it was written by Jake Donovan. And it is called Canelo Lawsuit, Contracts and Statement of Arbitration Ordered by Court. And I read it. And because I said, let me get an understanding of where this is. And let me assure you that that should not have been the title of that article. And in fact, it is a great example of burying the lead. If you do not know what burying the lead is, in journalism, the purpose of journalism is to provide information to people that they do not have so that they can make well-informed decisions, that you can make up your mind. So what journalism is supposed to do is give everybody the facts and the information that we can then, as people in society, use to debate each other about what we feel should occur or should not occur. That's the purpose of journalism. And one of the things that you should never do, and they tell you not to do, is to bury your lead. You are supposed to start with the most significant thing in the article and then give a synopsis and then flesh it out in the rest of your article. That's what your article is supposed to be. You're supposed to tell them what you're going to tell them. Then you're supposed to tell them, and you're supposed to tell them what you told them, right? But the most important thing is that you focus on the main issue. So when I read this article, and it said the title, and it said Canelo Alvarez, contracts and settlement of and statement of arbitration ordered by a court, I was like, okay, now I'll know where it's going to be. Is it going to be in federal court or is it going to be in district court, right? I mean, or is it going to be in federal court or is it going to be in state court, right? I thought that was going to be the issue. It is not. Because in the middle of the article, and I cannot understand for any at all why this would be stuck in the middle of the article, but I promise you it's there. Jake Donovan just throws this fact out that it's not just breach of contract that there's an issue, that there are also other complaints. What are the complaints? Because these are important, because this is where your money is. One was breach of contract. He's saying that they breached the contract. He wants to get out of the contract to go do what he wants to do. Our relationship's over. We've talked about that. Don't care about it. That's not important right now. The other one is intentional interference with the contract and negligent interference with the contract. We're going to not talk about those either, because we're just going to talk about the ones that just stand out like, whoa. And that is fraud and concealment and breach of a fiduciary duty. That is where your $60 million is, that I believe that this article that was written is telling you is out there. But you literally have to read the whole thing, chop it up, put the dates together, take all the extra wording out, and make a simple paragraph out of it that says what he means. Promise me, if that's 1,000 words, he got everything he wanted to say in about 40 of them. Now, what is fraud and concealment? Whenever you accuse somebody of something where you say it's fraud and concealment, right? Well, what does that mean? What do you have to prove in order for somebody to say, yeah, that's fraud, that's concealment, right? So what is it? Concealing or suppressed a material fact. There has to be some information that you know that somebody should have told you that they didn't, and that you didn't have any information, that you didn't have access to that, right? So, but that is the central, and that the plaintiff was reasonably misled, right? So if there's some information out there that Canelo Alvarez should have known in the world, Oscar De La Hoya is not responsible for telling him everything when he's making his decision. But if there is something material that would affect his decision, that he would not have signed that agreement if he had known, and Oscar De La Hoya knew that he wouldn't have done it if he had known that, that is fraud. And that is concealing the information to commit fraud. Got it? Fraud, you told me something was one thing, and I relied upon you, and it was reasonable for me to rely upon you, but you was lying. You frauded me. That's what Canelo Alvarez accused DAZN and Oscar De La Hoya of. And remember, it's fraud and concealment. So who could commit the fraud and who could commit this concealment? Easily, Oscar De La Hoya can commit the fraud and the concealment, and DAZN could possibly commit the concealment and the fraud, especially if they know that there's material facts out there related to that and they had a duty to tell them. But let's get into the facts and why the breach of contract is just where he gets out. But let's get into why I say it's $60 million. There's been reports about the contract for Canelo Alvarez, and the contract was valued, according to different sources. The contract with Goldenboy Promotions and DAZN was an 11-fight, $365 million deal that was reached on October 28th. Now, if you average that out, you say, well, what is 11? What is 11 divided by 365? That should be $33 million a fight, right? That's the average of the fight. Now, this was being communicated out in the public as if that is what DAZN was paying, Goldenboy Promotions, right? Because everybody knew that the contract is not, that the actual contract with DAZN is not with Canelo, right? The Canelo is signed with Goldenboy, and Goldenboy has the contract with DAZN. So when people said, oh, this is this big $365 million 11 fight deal, but it's really not an 11 fight deal. It is, if they may say 11 fights, that amount over 11 fights, but they say $35 million a fight, right? So if it's $35 million a fight, if they go 14, it's $35 million each time. Now, what's the problem? There's a difference of $15 million there because Rocky Fielding, Canelo Alvarez was only paid $15 million. Watch this. That's why in public they said it was an 11 fight, $365 million fight. And where some places you hear that Canelo signed a 10 fight, $35 million contract with Goldenboy. So you have to look at those facts real quick. Contract number one is with DAZN and Canelo, DAZN and Oscar. And that is supposed to be for $35 million a fight. But they gave a break on Rocky Fielding and only paid Canelo Alvarez $15 million for one of the fights. That's why it's 11 fights, $365 million instead of 11 fights, $350 million. So $370 million, right? Because there's another $25 million that was missing. Right? Or another $20 million that was missing because Canelo was supposed to be getting 35, right? But they only charged 15. So where'd that money go? Now you would think, and this is where the fraud could come into place. And this is why in the article, it was like you're burying the lead because Jake Donovan says, and I'm going to quote what the article says that they had been given information and that the terms for the Canelo Alvarez, for the contract between DAZN and Goldenboy was really $40 million and not $35 million. So what does all that mean? Because I have to be very clear. If Canelo Alvarez was told that the contract between Oscar De La Hoya and DAZN was $35 million a fight, $35 million a fight. And then, right? But he found out that it was 40. And that the other $5 million that Canelo Alvarez is getting paid from DAZN, that Oscar De La Hoya is getting paid from DAZN, is being used to pay for other fights. Get it? Oscar De La Hoya is paying Canelo Alvarez $35 million a fight, but he has a $40 million contract with DAZN. Where's the extra $5 million going? The extra $5 million is going to DAZN, not to Oscar De, is going to Goldenboy Promotions and not Oscar De La, and not Canelo Alvarez. Now, most times, promoters take their cuts out of the fighter's check. So it could be very possible that Canelo Alvarez is paying coming and paying going. That he thinks that DAZN is paying $35 million for the fight, but they're really paying 40. And so Canelo Alvarez, so Oscar De La Hoya and those guys are taking $5 million off the top and then charging him promotional fees. That is the only thing that only reason I would think that he would be charging him for fraud and concealment. What else is there to be fraudulent with and to conceal other than the money? Which is why Canelo Alvarez is asking for specific performance. Note, when he is at not specific performance, he's asking for expectations because he's saying, dude, 200, I want all of my money from this contract. Okay? They breached the contract with DAZN and I want out of it completely. And I want all of the money that they would have paid me. Why would he be asking for that? Why would he think that you should get that when you haven't even fought those fights yet? Because they think that DAZN and Oscar De La Hoya should be punished for what they did. Punished for what they tried to do by entering into a bad faith negotiation and frauding Canelo Alvarez by thinking that DAZN's relationship with Canelo Alvarez, with DAZN and Oscar De La Hoya's relationship was different than it actually was, and that the financial terms were different than it actually was, and that those guys had a fiduciary duty to tell them, and they did not. So that Oscar De La Hoya, because Canelo Alvarez is like 95% of that company, so that they could stay afloat, and Canelo Alvarez would do what Oscar De La Hoya wants him to do. But at the same time, skimming off the top like a champ. But that's my take. Go read the article for yourself and let me know if that's what you get from it, because that's what I got from it. And with that, I'm out. Peace.